let's hear it for your Sydney Swans.
Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club.
So to all you loyal Swans out there, you just can't get enough of the red and the white.
Fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods. G'day there, Signets and Swanlings. Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods. You're joined, as always, by the crew from Sydney. I'm Noddy, together with Chris and Stevo.
That's right, you saw seething, confused, but absolutely loyal Swans fans. Tonight we get stuck into the upsetting grand final loss to the Brisbane Lions.
Yeah, upsetting's right, isn't it? But before then, remember, if you like what you hear, give us a like, give us a follow. It all makes a difference to what we're trying to do with the podcast. Let's get it going with a recap, Nod.
So 11 days ago now, on the 28th of September, in front of 100,000 fans at the MCG, our Sydney Swans were defeated by the Brisbane Lions by 60 points, with a final score of 9-6-60 to 18-12-120. All right, lads, off the top, give me 3 words you were feeling on the grand final day, and that can be from start to finish. And I want 3 words how you're feeling now, so I want 6 words in total each. 12 words. Maths,
okay.
Go.
Look, Stevo, I might kick off, if you don't mind, with the 3 words that I felt on the day. Proud, I felt strong, and I felt passionate to be surrounded by my beloved Swans fans. Over to you, mate.
On grand final day, my 3 words were that I was missing Marty Matner. We can talk about that maybe in a moment. I can elaborate, but yeah, missing Marty Matner.
Okay.
Yeah, we're role players. We're role players. No, mine is excited, excited, shock, gutted.
Yeah.
That's game day. How are you feeling now? Give me 3 words how we're feeling now.
Well, I think that's a totally different story. There's been, as you said, Noddy, some time has passed, but it hasn't softened the blow at all. So the 3 words I've chosen have been sad, tortured, and concerned. I'm actually really concerned about what's going on now. Stevo?
Yeah, well, my 3 words, I think I've misunderstood or misinterpreted the task that I had here. I've given a phrase of 3 words rather than 3 independent words.
That's okay. You can go with that. We're pretty flexible.
Okay,
here.
good.
There's no rules, mate.
Yeah.
We do haikus on this podcast.
Yeah, there's been some good ones.
So...
I've actually been loving Sam's 3-word summaries, to be honest. I've been looking forward to those every time he's on. Mine connects to Chris's last one, which is concern, which is spring cleaning time.
Okay.
That's a really good segue. Just before we launch into that, I'm going to up it and just talk about through my 5 stages of grief, because that's kind of that's where we're up to. That's where we're up to, sure. Right? So denial, obviously, halfway through the second quarter, we're going to go into that. Anger was post-game drinks. Obviously, everyone was feeling it. Bargaining is trying to watch the replay. What the fuck was I thinking there? Like, oh yeah, surely if we just kicked that goal, we could have won. And oh god,
10 other goals.
10 of them.
Depression is realizing I should never have watched the replay, and then Parker requests a trade to fucking North. And acceptance is, well, I don't think I'm there yet. I'm definitely not at acceptance yet, but who knows? Maybe I will be by next season. So not 3 words, but 5 stages of grief.
I feel that I'm still in the denial phase. I am really, I'm still trying to get myself to bargaining, and I just can't. I cannot get past that stage. I know we're going to get stuck into it. And there's a lot of emotions running around, and Swans fans as a collective, I've noticed, have just fallen apart. Like those Facebook groups and around the Twitter spaces and everything, everyone is just really all over the shop. I've never seen so many monologues in my life. Then after this grand final loss,
it's rough out there. It really is.
Yeah. There's a lot of hurting people out there. We feel
so. That's a good point, Chriso. And I know there's many really answers for this, but like, what is the one thing that we're most disappointed in? This is a bit of a question without notice, but like, what is the thing that jumps out to you that says, this is why I'm feeling like this right now?
For me, it's no lesson learnt.
Yeah.
Like we walked from 2022, and you know we you go back and listen to that. We bargained our way through that. We kind of appreciated where the Cats were as a team, where we were as a team, and we felt that a young team, although bolstered by some older guys in Rampy, Parker, Buddy, etc., but this time around they had the experience. They've been at the top of their game for the entire year, and we learnt no lessons, and we went out there and the exact same thing happened. That's what I think for me is a real telling point. That's why I can't get through to the next stage into bargaining, because I just can't believe that happened again. That's
how about you, Stevo?
For me, it's the effort. Like, it's one thing to lose a big game knowing that you left everything you had on the field and you just got done by Brisbane in this particular match. If we think back to the West Coast one, we lost by a point. They left everything on the field. They lost by a point. It happens. It sucks, and you get on with life and you reboot. But when 2 grand finals in a row out of 3 years, and I'm only really going to talk about these two because the previous 2 disappointments were mostly not the same playing group, the 2014 and 16 ones. Most of those players, there were a couple that were present in most of them, or at least in 3 of them. But really, it's these 2 and 3 years, and to give 2 very, very disappointing efforts that were well below their best football and just not putting enough in on the day. 2 and 3 is really a letdown.
Definitely, and I'm actually going to throw some key points from Jules here, who obviously we love her work so much, and she was nice enough to share some key points here, so I'm going to throw them out there. I think they're pretty. I mean, she's saying that the warning signs were actually there all year for what unfolded. In that, we're obviously hoping that we're convinced of our ability to come back, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about that, Stevo, but then obviously we weren't, and then that tendency to just go totally missing in games, but rely on a few, like on a few of those talented players to lead scoring frenzies, and it's just patched over so many cracks. Too many passengers, players not willing to to pressure and tackle and do the hard work, and that's what defined us on the big day. And I love this quote from Jules. I've heard it before, but it's so apt now. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, and that's not to point fingers because it was it was a whole team effort of lack of effort, but there were, we just, geez, it was...
There was moments there in the game, and there's been moments throughout, and it's something that I've mentioned on the podcast quite a few times in the year, especially in the second half, it's just where we're just not doing the tough stuff enough, where the contested football, we're just getting bashed around the ball. And when we play beautiful football, it's incredible. We've spoken about it. It's so fun to watch. As a fan, there's nothing more fun than watching, a link-up play between, say, Blakey and Errol. Errol just smashes in this incredible kick right in the forehead of a Marty. You're watching that happen. It's like poetry. But when that's not available to you, when they lock you down, they pressure you, you got to find a way to get the footy. You fight hard. And as Jules summed up perfectly, you got to work hard, and they didn't. And that's what I guess the lesson learned is just did not do the simple things right on the day, and it just killed us, absolutely killed us.
Yeah, when they won't defend, when they won't track a player who's come up and down the field, when they just get burnt on transition, on turnover, that's what I'll come back to what I said at the start, like missing Marty Matner. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about that moment in the 2012 grand final where he busted his gut to get across to the wing and force a boundary throw in when Hawthorn would have been out and probably score and get ahead in the last couple of minutes of that game. These are the sort of just hard efforts that weren't present in that game. And yeah, there seemed to be this maybe hope that we'd had all season that our elite talent is going to help us with a 5-goal burst in the last quarter again because we didn't turn up for the first quarter again. And it felt like I was watching the same thing but against a better football team, because Brisbane, I think, were across the season, the second best team. They finished 5th, but they were the second best team, I think. And it didn't hold up against a team that was as committed and strong to their game plan. And
for me, the thing when I asked what was the most disappointing, it's off the back of this lack of effort, and then it's the score. Obviously, I mean, we sort of, kicked a couple of junk time goals to bring it back to the 10 goal margin or whatever it was. But I mean, we very nearly
still
equaled.
Unacceptable.
Yeah, exactly. Of course. But then I was like, okay, I need to dig into this, right? So I looked at the average losing margins from grand final since 1990, so the AFL era, and the average losing margin is 41 points. So that's a nice little. It's very close to all the bloody gambling margins that you see out there, right? Not that I condone it, but so effectively, games that have been decided from 1 point to 40 points are 18 out of the 35 years. So 1990 to 2024.
Right. Interesting.
And then for 41 plus, there's 17 games out of 35. So it's almost 50-50, right? It's like 51%, 48.5%. Right, so you're either going to be in a close game or a fucking blowout. Basically, it's a flip of the coin. But when you drill in a little further, right, from the 35 grand finals, 9 have been decided by 10 goals plus, and Sydney Swans have had 3 of those, a third of those games.
How many? I'm not expecting you to have all the stats because you've already done enough. That's plenty. But I wonder then how many have been less than 2 goals.
So there have been 6 games decided by.
You did do.
I did do it.
Of course you did.
Yes.
Cheeky boy.
6 games decided by 10 points or less. So just going to the 10 plus goal games. That's Sydney 3. Obviously we know it. Geelong 2 in 94-95. Then Melbourne 2000, Port 2007, GWS 2019, Western Bulldogs 2021. Right, but then the 10 points or less games, the 6 of them, Brisbane 2002, our Swannies in 2005, West Coast the following year, Sydney in 2012, that gorgeous game. We're referring Matt and his effort there. West Coast.
Can we talk about that game? Can we just do a post review of that?
Let's go back to 2012 because that was the last happy time.
Can we just remember?
But rounding it out, West Coast over the Pies in 18, and then Collingwood against Brisbane last year, right? So those percentages. 25%. So 9 out of 35 is 25%, and 6 out of 35 is 17%. So it doesn't make for pretty. So for me, it's that sort of, sure you could go, you're either going to win, it's going to be a close game or a blowout, but we just keep racking up that 10 plus unattractive losing margin. So that's the disappointing thing for me. Otherwise, what a fantastic day out at the footy. What a wonderful time we had in Melbourne.
Oh was it nice? I didn't.
The weather was incredible. Weather was great for the first time ever. It was great up until then. But after the game was finished, it kind of got shitty again. And one thing that I didn't factor in is I didn't take anything other than a Swans jacket with me. So for the next 2 days, I was wearing my Swans kit, full Swans kit, just walking around town like a dickhead, just getting people yelling at me from cars down Brunswick Street. But you got to celebrate. I guess you got to.
You didn't go into Myer and buy yourself a new outfit.
Well, no, actually,
I think there's a couple of op shops there. So
yeah, you couple of op shops.
They're probably more expensive than the bloody Myer shops, to be honest with you. Those damn hipsters.
You could have found some Fitzroy gear, probably some old Fitzroy merch in Brunswick in some op shop.
Yeah. Well, so that was Brunswick the other thing. Yeah, go Noddy, please. That was something that you brought upon us there.
Obviously, there's a bit of a faux pas happening here, and this is hindsight's always fantastic. But so booked an Airbnb in Brunswick, and after the game on the Sunday, we go out for brekkie, and I was like, "Fuck, there's a fair few Lions fans here. They're everywhere."
Only Lions fans,
polite and courteous. It was basically home base for the Lions fans because it's essentially Fitzroy. So that's a bit of a geographical whoopsie, but
spiritual home. But it was a good Airbnb for a good price, and it was good on you for sorting it out because honestly, that
cancellation
was awesome.
Policy, bro. It was I got a little ahead of myself. I didn't want to talk about it on air until we made the big dance. I booked it in July, and it was the only place in September that had a cancellation policy to the 25th of September
after the prelim. After the prelim.
So I was like, you beauty, let's go. I don't really care if we're in the thick of it with Lions fans. I mean, they're lovely people. They were so courteous.
They were really good. I mean, just the same as 2022 with the Cats fan was actually, all Cats fans were really lovely to everyone. There was no yelling or carrying on at all by anywhere before or after. I mean, I saw a couple of fans being punched in the head. I noticed on the way out. I don't know what happened there. It could have been just their own fans, but it was Cats fans and Lions fans were very.
I mean, that's markedly more feral than the Lions fans that we encountered, Chriso. That's like they were basically just really nice. They were like, "Hey, can you get a photo of us? We're like really just excited to be here again. I hope you guys have a good game."
Yeah,
and it was like, I don't know if you felt this, Chriso. On the way to the ground, did you feel like the Swans fans were nervous? And then going into the ground, there was like, and Lions fans were just loving it. They were just like, yeah, we're here again. Let's do it. We're going to win. Do you feel that way you guys were?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one thing I've got written down here. That's one thing I want to talk about. Yeah. I could only describe the Swans fans as just collectively tentative. Everyone was not quite there. Everyone was like me. We were hurt. We're walking into like a situation where we've been massively hurt before, but we didn't contest. And you could feel it in the air. The Swans fans collectively were looking at each other with nervous eyes. The Lions fans at the meantime freaking loving it. They're just cheering, bang, they're high-fiving people on the way in. They were way hungrier. They were screaming all the way through Katy Perry. None of the Swans fans were getting into that. They were all just sitting there just nervous as hell. And the team on the ground was the same as the team in the stands, just tentative. And it just felt that way all the way through.
Even the parade the day before, right? So there was a look of intense focus on Rampy's face. And look, at the time you're like, yeah, he's in the zone. This is it. This is what we want to see. And like Neil and everyone, they were just like, smiling, just like, oh, wow, happy to be here. And then obviously the bloodbath the following day, it all puts it in, it all makes you wonder, doesn't it? But so are we going to talk about the mental stuff, or are we going to do that later? Should we dive into that now? I mean, who knows?
I think let's talk about it now, because we're touching on it with the fans. The fans have some mental scarring that we're going to deal with, so let's talk about that.
Well, I mean, I think we're outcoached. We're clearly outplayed. They implemented the game plan, but it comes down to preparation, right? And so, I mean, obviously they're fresher off the back of their grand final last year. But I do think their list is marginally more ready than ours, although their 5 youngest players were so impactful. We can talk about that. But I don't know. There was the psychology coach, Emma Murray, or whatever they're called, sports psychologist. Were we connected enough? There was a phone call at halftime. I don't know if that's actually true. It seems to be a bit of a rumor, but it sounds like it was.
What's the details of that? I never heard that.
Oh, I don't really. I mean, it's a rumor. There was a call at halftime, or she addressed the team at halftime. I mean, this is on a Reddit. It's on a bit of a rumor mill, so I mean, who knows? But I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, the point is, Stevo, were we just gone after that second quarter? Like, were we ready? Like, did we play a better first quarter than we have been all year? Because we've already said that has been a major issue for us all year.
First quarter wasn't great though, was it? Like, they kicked the first 2 goals and then Brisbane kicked 4 of the next 5 or something, I think, in that first quarter. So the first quarter, I mean, they did score first, but then they weren't great even in the first quarter, really. And then by halftime, the game was over, like absolutely over. There was not a shred of expectation. Like, watching that, I thought, no, there's no way we're going to come back and win this. Not the way that they're playing, and not the way that Brisbane are playing. And Brisbane were really good, but the Swans were poor. Like, they were genuinely poor. And you got to wonder what's going on in the heads of players. Like, and because if you guys talked about all the fans that was interesting what you guys just said now about the fans being nervous going in, and I think when you've had a dominant season, halfway through the year we were on top by about 3 clear wins, and at that point of the year the premiership was Sydney's to lose. So all of the pressure, all the expectation comes on to the Swans. So for the Lions, even though they were the runners-up last year and only lost by less than a kick in the grand final, I think that all of the stress of how do we deal with this if we lose this was on the Sydney players, and you could see it in the way that they played. They didn't play with conviction.
That's the one thing I wanted to...
They were meters off their player.
Every time, yeah.
I know, zone versus one-on-one or whatever, but we were just like looking at it going, our man is meters off
tactically
the opponent they're marking.
Over and over again, they just overlapped us and found a man on the wing and just strolled on into our 50 over and over again. I'm like, at what point is the coaching going to see this and adjust? And they didn't. They didn't at all the entire way through. All the players see it,
do it. Run. Like, they didn't want to run. You see them. Like, there's been some really bad footage of Swans players, like edits and stuff, that has been on all of the different football panel shows.
I haven't looked.
The various different. God. There's a lot of them. One of the one of these commentators who I do respect quite a lot in the way that he analyses the game is Nathan Buckley, and there's some analysis that he does of Errol Goulden and a couple of other Swans. I think Blakey also, but definitely Goulden. There's a piece of play that he shows of Goulden just refusing to run, and the outcome is that Lohmann just waddles into the 50 unaccompanied and kicks a goal. And there was a lot of places in the game where similar sort of stuff happened, and that's mental. That's choosing not to run. This is an elite runner. Like Goulden is not an average. He covers so much territory. We've seen him, and he just wasn't going with the guys. And some of these highlights, I hope these guys, look at them, but then I hope that they don't shatter them too much either. Like, it's really tough for now for Longmire and the other coaches. What do we do with this?
That's kind of it, right? Because a lot of the talking point, certainly on the night, is we've lost another grand final, another big loss, and I like now that the dust has settled. You draw a line between 14 and 16, 12 obviously glory days, but a line between 14 and 16, and then 22 and 24 because they are very different teams, and rejuvenated the list on the run really. But it's very hard I think it's been hard for Swans fans to accept a 1-5 because we're so successful. And this is the thing I've been grappling with. And I've asked a lot of other mates who are fans of other clubs, and I don't know where I am at the moment. So I'll just try and put forward the two basic viewpoints is, would you rather get to the grand final and dish up that, or would you rather not get to the grand final and still be in the hunt, like lose close in a prelim or a semi, or, do you know what I mean? Like, or do you just not make finals? So a North fan would probably be like, you bloody, what are you bastards talking about? 12 finals out of 14 years from the current coach we've had. There's probably not a better record. I think Chris Scott is the only one who's up there. But then to get to the grand final 5 times is an amazing effort. But then you go, but we lost 4 times.
I think you have to give it to the team that gets to the grand final. Like, you have to. And it hurts to say because it hurts so much to be going to them so often and only to be disappointed, especially the last 2 years, and just the way we, not so much the outcome, but just the way we played, as Stevo has been going on about as well. So, but you'd have to give it to the team for getting there. But then you quickly forget that when you see the effort that they did on the big dance. Like, it's the scarring for me of, and I'll touch on it later about what we said after 2022. But it's just being pantsed in front of a national audience from the boys you love. We talk about them every day of the week, amongst us, to friends, to my family. It engulfs us so much, and to see them show up or not show up on the day is what really, really hurts. But you have to give it. For me personally, I'd rather be at a grand final that many times than not be there for 20 odd years. I'm
the same.
For some reason.
I'd rather be there, and because you don't know what you've got unless you actually get put on that stage, right? So if we lose a prelim, say we lost a prelim to Port by 10 points and they go on and they get smacked in the grand final, and we're like, we got close. But you never really know where your group's at until you've been put in that situation. And I think that there's different ways. It depends on the resilience of the group. It depends on the personalities in the group. We don't know that. We only see what we see through the media and stuff. We don't really know what makes this group of players and coaches and the whole club, like all the support staff and everything, tick. We don't know that from the outside. We know how, as fans, it sucks to watch your team get embarrassed. We know that for sure. But, maybe they do respond well to this. Maybe they're young enough, like most of them are young enough, maybe they do have that resilience in them, and maybe it's up to the coaches now to go through the group and think, okay, which players have we got on the list that have the resilience to deal with something like this twice now and bounce back again, and which players maybe don't have that resilience, and they're the ones that we start to move on.
Yeah, I think that either way you cut it, in the aftermath of that, there were a lot of raw emotions, obviously, and understandable. So, but there were basically 2 major camps, I think, of reactions from Swans fans, and one was that eternal blind optimism. Get behind the boys. It's so hard to win a grand final. It's definitely valid and a legitimate comment. And on the other side, it was demanding answers or scathing critic. Not good enough. But one thing I just want to say, I think it's okay to be either or. I don't think that people making the comments of criticism were coming from, I think that Swans we're beyond being fair weather fans now. Do you know what I mean? Like I think there's loyal Swans either way you fall.
Yep.
And if you just happen to be one of those loyal Swans fans that says, "Yep, well, shit happens, but we'll stick with them." And then if you are like, "Not good enough, let's strive for improvement," our motto is to conquer or die, and we simply have to get to the bottom of this. I think that's okay as well. Like, I think a diverse range of input is required to really improve from here. And I mean, obviously, Tom Harley addressed the members and fans in a very well-written and very Tom Harley-esque speech. And,
I reckon it was a chatbot, mate. I don't reckon that it should be like that.
Well,
how do I calm down the faithful Swans?
I'd rather nothing, honestly. It was sounded like a political staffer who'd spat something out of ChatGPT. Honestly, that's what it sounded like. He's talking to football fans, not to corporate shareholders,
That's true. But full support of Horse and no succession plan confirmed.
What is the fullness? What is in fullness of time, Noddy? Because you mentioned Tom Harley has said this a couple of times, and I did see it there.
Every trade period, he's on SEN, he's on this and that. Like, he's a wonderful speaker. He's a great speaker. I think he's very good at what he does. He just happens to love this one term that I hear every October, and that's we'll go through that, and we'll get through that in the fullness of time.
In the fullness of time,
and I think it's just one of those sayings that is. There's a time and a place for it, and it's every trade period, because ultimately it's like, back off, reporter. Yeah. We'll figure that out once it gets done. But it's in the fullness of time. It just sounds a lot nicer.
I got really mad when I saw that. Time doesn't get full. It's infinite and it's relative together. It doesn't get full. Shut up. I wish he'd stop saying it.
I did think that was an irrational reaction from Chris. You were like, time doesn't work like that.
Time doesn't work like it's infinite. You're
missing the point.
Yeah.
Oh, fellas. All right. Well, there's obviously a lot that the club's got to work through to bounce back from here. It's not as if we haven't been able to make the finals. Like, we made the finals again the year after the Cats smashing. So, but it is going to take a lot of work, because I think that key word there that Stevo you've already mentioned is resilience, and that's trying to find out who is and who isn't. Because there's no reason to say we can't go deep again with the list we have. But it's just about how they mentally come back from this. And it's going to be one to really watch. But, okay, where are we at here? What have we spoken about? Should we talk about the game?
I think we're trying to avoid talking about the game.
I think we are. Trying to work out what to say. What would you say about the game?
We can talk a bit about the game. We shouldn't we?
Yeah. Dancing around the issue. All right, well, Steve, I'll give you some just general thoughts of the game, and happy to hear some of those points you've said already, but just... give me what you're thinking, mate.
I'll talk about, I mean, this kind of links into, because often we talk about some of the stats, and they connect well to what I think about how the game went generally, actually. Was there's two things, really, for the game, was how their big three players, like their big three ball movers, and the ones that I think for them was Neil, Ashcroft, and Zorko, had their big three went compared to our big three, and we all know Heaney, Gould, and Warner is our big three, and they smashed us, like, absolutely smashed. I went through, I broke it, especially in the first half when the game was actually hot, because the second half was junk time. It was 40-odd points at half time. It was pretty much over, especially after that first goal they got. In the first quarter, Neil, Ashcroft and Zorko got 23 combined touches. Our three got 16. In the second quarter, they got 22 combined touches. Our three got 13. Total for the game, their three got 91 to our 59. That's an entire elite player difference worth of stats. Okay, Heaney was off for a lot of the second half, but that's his non-impact on the game. You can't, if you're on the bench injured, you can't do much. But then listen to the efficiency. Listen to these numbers. Lockie Neal went at 86%. Ashcroft went at 87%. Zorko went at 96%. Heaney, 43%. Nuts. Goulden 71, Warner 52, and they averaged 90% efficiency out of their three. We averaged 55% efficiency out of our three. That's the top end, which was horrible, and we rely very heavily on those three players to win football games. Them and also the likes of Blakey and Papley, who were also very flat. But then the bottom end was also terrible. Out of the bottom 13 disposal winners on the field, 10 were Sydney Swans players.
Not touching it. Yeah, to touch on that,
their middle and their bottom is better than ours. A lot better, I think. If we look at their 23, their middle and bottom killed us. Also their top, but their middle and bottom took us to town.
It's the structure of the game that we're playing as well. Like touching on exactly as you say there, Stevo. Like they're just getting touch of the ball. They were plus 78 in uncontested possessions, which we knew that they were going to do. That's what frustrates me. We knew that was going to be what they were going to drag the game to be if they couldn't get it going forward, and they did it easily. So plus 78 in uncontested possessions, from plus 75 in kicks, and plus 70 in marks. They controlled the ball across the way. They did not let us touch it on their way, and we could not put enough pressure where the ball would drop to get it going our way ever. And it was just went on and on and on, and it was disappointing. It was flat.
There was some stat on that, wasn't there? Like I forget, because I was watching the game with
30.
But for Brisbane going into that game, like I remember that in matches this year where Brisbane had like whatever the uncontested mark differential was, whenever it was above a certain number, they won. And that's what happened again.
Yeah.
I think they're 30-3 over the last few years for when they take. I think it's marks. I think it's like not even more than. It's not like a differential.
No, it's just themselves.
It was a total marks. I forget exactly what the stat was, but I remember hearing that stat.
I think
that was actually Sammy Boy screaming that out during the game to me. Bloody murder. Like, I need to give a little bit of a shout out to Sammy because I was sat next to him. God bless him. Love that boy. And if anyone took it as hard as Sammy, I'd be surprised. And he really went on. He really sat there and took his beating. And he just kept screaming like, the uncontested marks, you know what they're trying to achieve. What are you doing? He just kept screaming, thinking that like the coaching box was going to hear him. But
from the top of the Olympic stand, just getting the message out there.
We were two from the top of the stadium. But yeah, he was doing his best to let show.
Mate, he was MIA. He didn't come out afterwards. I mean, everyone came out pretty much.
Yeah, mate.
I actually, that's why I checked in with him like midweek. I was like, Sammy, are you alive? Like, I hadn't heard from him. But the thing that pissed me off is this season we were 16-0 or something when we kicked the same or more, like by one, kicks than the opposition. Like that's the thing. Like they just starved us of the footy, so we couldn't kick it. But even still, like we've already said, that we just had the yip. I mean, their pressure was excellent. There wasn't like a huge tackling game, but I just think the pressure rating or whatever, all that sort of stuff. We were either in our own heads from the first bounce, or it was they were on us, and it was a combination of both. But yeah, Heaney was just over handballing. Blakey was miskicking, all those direct turnovers in the first quarter, all those sort of Papley with the throw, and then McInerney with the back. Like, just they'd lost all their skills. It was, I mean, obviously Heaney, it comes out that he's got that ankle fracture.
Yeah, but then Lachie Neale had a busted foot too. Like every year, players go into grand finals hurt, and the winning team are heroes, and the losers shouldn't have played. That's always the narrative, right? Like this is what everyone always says.
Exactly.
If we win the flag, then Isaac Heaney is he's a superstar. even on a broken foot. So whatever. Everyone takes hurt players in the grand finals.
I mean, look, let's not take anything away from the Lions.
For sure.
We probably should have led this. Like they were 0-3 from the beginning of the season, 2-5 in the first 7, 5 ACLs. They finished 5th, only second team to win the flag from 5th, and it happened to be the second time against the Swans.
Bloody Dunkley. Freaking Dunkley is just he's the poison, isn't he? And he was in Heaney's face. He played such a good game on Heaney. When Heaney was on the field, he was every excellent. Stoppage he was at Heaney. Like he was so effective on him. Yeah.
Yeah. First flag since 2003 for them. 4th is Brisbane. 12th overall. They obviously came with that loss last year. They were ready to go, And one other thing is that when we win minor premierships, we don't
stop
win
doing
flags.
it. Finish third.
So finish second. Yeah.
Let's finish outside the 4 and come home on a tear and just fuck
we know
everyone
how it happens.
We've
seen it,
guys.
We've got experience in it.
Oh man!
Maybe get a run on the MCG in the finals would be nice too. If we could play it freely on the MCG. Yeah.
That'd be nice. I think more games. That was one of the things I said after the match. We need to lobby the AFL to play more games in the MCG, but it's not because of the dimension of the ground. It's not a stamp. We don't play on a stamp. What do they call it? What do they say? They play footy on a stamp or something.
The length isn't different. It's the shape of it. Like the width is different. It's
the vibe.
There's more square meters on the MCG.
It's the vibe. It's the vibe.
If you look on Google Maps and you do you can put them side by side, the SCG, even though it's roughly the same length, give or take 5 or 10 meters, which is nothing, but then there's a lot more space on the MCG because of the shape of the thing, like the wings and the flanks and stuff.
Yeah. There's definitely more space. Like it's clearly the biggest ground, but it's not. It shouldn't be. Yeah. We shouldn't have been meters off our man. That's my point.
Working. That's lack of effort.
They took 22 to 9 forward 50 marks, and they kicked twice as many scoring shots as us. I mean, they had 12 behinds, 3 of which were rushed, but still. Wasn't there a poster in there as well? I mean, it could have been a lot worse than it was.
That second quarter, they kicked 4 or 5 points in a row before they went on that domination run and just ended the game. Yeah.
Do we need to talk about the domination run?
Some ways will not waste it.
Stevo, give it to us. Let me get ready.
Yeah, you got to take this on the chin. This one, go on.
Yeah. I mean, normally we use this section to talk about really good plays and stuff that we did, and great goals and tackles, and we didn't really have much of that to celebrate. So I'm going to talk about the 5 minutes and 26 seconds that I think killed the premiership dream for us, and that was if you ever want a bit of misery, go back to the replay and start from 8 minutes and 41 seconds remaining in the second quarter when Brisbane has just kicked the first of their 6-goal run that they ended that quarter with. So there's a 4-goal burst that takes up that 5 minutes, and that was it. That was the game. It was 17 points at that point, and at 17 points it was manageable. It was starting to pull out, but we could have pulled one back and got back in it at half time. But then Archie kicks one, goes out to 23 points. Berry kicks one, 29 points. Hipwood kicks that ridiculous thing from the boundary, which, I mean, come on. If he's doing that, you know that it's kind of their day, right?
They got the old Ackermanis at the end afterwards.
Yeah,
that was pretty tidy.
He did the old Acker.
That was very respectful anyway.
Rampy just stumbling over the place. A lot of players stumbling over the place in that one. And then bloody Archie comes in again, like our nemesis from the Brisbane game earlier in the season, where he kicked that winning goal for them with a go-ahead goal, wherever it was. So it's this bloke again. Got it out to 41 points. And that was it. In 5 minutes, 4 goals, that was the game. We got dominated. They played really, really well. It was a masterclass from them. But, I mean, I'm not going to go through a play-by-play because we just don't want to do it. But I'm going to list a few of the Swans players who, watching those highlights, would probably wish they could have their time again. Put in some pretty ordinary efforts, some of them multiple. Grundy, Blakey, McInerney, Florent, McDonald, Roberts, Rampy, and whoever was meant to be running with Will Ashcroft. I don't know who it was, but they didn't. Just a few names that in that 5 minutes really probably would love to have their time again, I think.
I mean, didn't Chad and Heaney only have 1 tackle each for the whole game? Is that...
I didn't even know about that. I mean, we only had 40. That's true.
I'll get out the stats on the app right now.
Oh my God, you're right. Okay, so one tackle for the following people: Blakey, Cunningham, Florent, Heaney, McCartan, McInerney, Papley, and Chad Warner. That is a lot. One each for each one of those players. That is a lot.
So that's a Rowbottom
players.
game, like a good game from Rowbottom, and that's their effort in the grand final. That number.
Yeah.
That's a rowy effort. Yeah. We had 45 for the game. They had 64. Obviously, they just minus 19. I think it was Jude Bolton at 3/4 time, just feeling a lot of emotions. 33 tackles to 3/4 time, not good enough. And if anyone is qualified to say we need to lift our effort,
Jude's allowed to.
He was a massive effort. He's one of those players that we miss, and he was a very strong footballer. He was a top 10 draft pick. He was a very elite ball user and footy player, but he also gave everything. Like, he was a hard player. He never shirked anything ever on the field, Jude Bolton.
Man, look, we only lost the first quarter by 8. We very nearly could have won it. We were 10-0 when we win first quarters. So I hate to think, if we'd actually kicked straight, taken a few marks, done this and that, it's too hard to say. This is not the denial, this is the bargaining stage, right?
Let me help you.
We lose the second quarter. Yeah, not at all. We lose by 38 points, right? In the second quarter, we lose the third quarter by 27 points, and we win the fourth by 13, as if it mattered. But I mean, it's so painful, isn't it? I really was like flogging myself watching the replay. I was just like, why am I doing this? It was such an emotional. God.
Yes, it does.
You watched the whole replay? I only watched the first half. I didn't even bother with the second half.
I got to watch it in snippets over the next few days, multiple times, because, of course, it gets played everywhere nonstop for the next week. And I just proceeded to just slowly watch half a quarter, wherever I was, just to slowly take it in. It's just slowly stewing as Danny is just really upset for me and really concerned for my safety. She, God bless her.
No.
She was just like, "Are you okay?" She must have said that 1,000 times on the next couple of days, but turns out I wasn't.
Oh, I mean, we're all in a very fragile state, and it's going to be like that until probably round one. But next year,
that's right. Bring on round one. Yeah.
I actually watched it. I did watch it again. Sorry, I watched it after live because I watched it at Grant's place. My mate, who's a big Lions fan, the coach of our footy team here, and then on the streaming thing, it rolled on straight afterwards, like a replay. So we watched it in real time. They gave out all the medals and all that stuff, and then it came back on. So we actually watched it again on the same day. I've never done that before, even when we've won. Yeah.
That's hardcore, mate. We did stay until the very end. A lot of the boys left to go to the pub, but I stayed there, I'm pretty sure with Jules and Nerida, and we watched the presentations and we heard Dan Rampy give that excellent speech in defeat. Again, he is a wonderful speaker and he is a proud clubman, but it must be so difficult to give that kind of speech, twice in 3 years. But yeah, we stayed right to the end. But just going back to those role players, Stevo, and I feel like a lot of their role players were in that younger, as you're saying, that sort of what you would call the bottom end of the team. And I guess there's a couple of things I want to say, and I'll say the first one. I'll let you guys jump in. But like, how good was like Lohman and Morris and even Wilmot like had his moments like these. Obviously, Ashcroft's going to be a gun, and Fletcher's not far behind. That's their 5 youngest players, right? They got 5 players under 50 games, and that's them, right? And that's who I was saying. Like they had better games than like 75% or 90% of our list, right? And so there were more smalls just zipping around, kicking goals. Archie, are we too set in this tall? I mean, this is a bit of a season review question, and it's without notice. But I mean, hindsight's always a wonderful thing. But Heaney, you play him either way, whether he's injured, as you're saying, Stevo. There's always heroes when you find out what happened to them. But Logan going off when he did, and he had one touch or something. Was it a case of not wanting to break his heart twice? I mean, we had Adams there, who is a proven finalist, hungry for redemption, literally from the Pies and the Swans, and we got Cleary, who was just, and then Wicks, who obviously wasn't match fit, but
of course not. I mean,
team. I mean, this is probably
let's touch on the Logan piece, and I think that comes down to the lessons learned. Where 2022, Logan gets passed over for Sammy Reid off injury. And we knew Sammy Reid was injured because he came off at just past half time against the Pies. And as soon as that happened, we mentioned at the time that the Pies started coming back pretty quickly. And so he gets passed over. So Logan gets passed over for Sammy Reid. We're all baffled as a result of it. And then as it turns out, Sammy Reid comes off. Did he even last half a game of footy? I don't even know. I can't remember from
Reid. No, I think he was sub by half time, wasn't he, in that?
Yeah. And then we're like, okay, cool. And then we're sitting there scratching our heads going, hang on, is Logan injured or is he not? Because everyone tells us he is. And he comes off at the prelim with his busted foot. Turns out he could barely move on the damn thing, and he comes off around half time again. Like nothing, no lesson learned. And we're so committed, again, to the next point that you mentioned there, Noddy, so committed to this tour structure that despite the team that's in front of us, despite the fact that it wouldn't work for that team, we just go with it. And not just to say that was a reason why this wasn't a tactical loss. It was as well as, but it wasn't exclusively that. And it just disappoints me so much.
So does that contribute to the mental stuff, and but I get it. The flip side is you don't want to disappoint these players because they're all, especially all these young guns that have just signed on for 5 years.
I appreciate that.
Mentally scar them again, but geez, there's a lot of things you're looking back and go, oh, this is again, and I think that's where some of that sort of criticism comes from. It's like, was this? And Stewie bloody Jew. If I see that bloody prick, okay. I did. This is the one thing I actually wanted to do, and I didn't get around to doing it. In the preview for the game, I looked into the stats of Horse versus Fagan, and Fagan was like, was it 67%, and Horse is 30. The flip side of that, 30. Let's call it 68 and 32. And we know, I haven't done the numbers, but we know that when Stewie Jew was at the helm of the Suns, he would fuck us they were our bogey team. And then, lo and behold, he comes back from the ashes. He throws on a Lions tracksuit. I love his body. I love that physique. That is my kind of coach. And you've got two guys who have Horses. It's not just Horse, but the Sydney Swans coaching department's number. And you just look back and go, God, we were just doomed. There's all these little things that work against you. Not giving more players more games throughout the year. Not resting Grundy, all this stuff comes back into sharp focus because of this last performance. And anyway, that's again a review point.
I've got a question for Steve.
Sorry, Matt. Before you go on that, just on the McDonald thing. Like, the one thing I do think with that is that if the information from the medical people before that game was he's injured, but we can get him through the game, and they play him, then fine, and then they play him and he doesn't get through. They took a gamble, but they did think that he was a good chance of getting through. That's one thing. If they knew that he was no good, they probably wouldn't have played him. That's what I think.
Well, here's my question to you, mate. I actually wanted to understand this, and Stevo, like from an emotional level though, if he was 50-50, do you think not playing him when he's obviously putting up his hand to play, not playing him in 2022 and then again in 2024, would that have been the end of him? In terms of his respect for what the Swans have done to him for 2 grand finals in a row?
You would hope not. I think because it's almost the same situation, isn't it? You're taking in your preferred player, even though you're not certain he's going to get through the whole game, but you're willing to take the risk. And I think that's what they've done twice.
I think, to Chris's question, yes, I think it would have had a negative effect. Yeah, he extended for 5 years, but I think that had he not played because of a medical decision, then yes, I think that would have had lasting, I think that would have stayed in his mind, and that may have. There's still things can happen over the next few years, but I do think that that would have had an effect. But the thing I wanted to say is, like, ankles are different from hammies, right? I mean, we haven't even spoken about Mills being ruled out, right? I mean, that's kind of not that he had his best year, Millsy, but he's still a leader of the club, and he's still an organizer on the field, and we really missed that. We missed that sort of. We just missed that. We missed it. We missed him. I miss Mills, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But him putting his hand up saying, "Yeah, I'm good to go," and then the doctors and the coaches saying, "We agree that respectfully, thank you for your input, but we're not playing you." If that was the same situation with Logan, I guess the only difference is, an ankle is a bit different. You can give it a shot. You can sort of do this and that. A hammy, you basically just stop running, right? So. Yeah, I think it was a gamble, and it was approved by the medical department. But geez, it looks bad upon reflection.
Yeah,
I think.
And it's one of those ones that if it came off, then again, he's a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob Medal.
Oh, geez, Amadi had that shocker, didn't he? Kick out on the full when he finally got his kick. Not just him. There was
a lot of players had a lot of forgettable shockers. Days, didn't they?
Yeah. Didn't Hayden McLean miss from directly in front?
Yeah,
when we really needed to just get a goal. Anyway, it sounds like I'm panning the 3 young talls.
Well, they had no impact. I think it's fair. I think if that's the forward line and they didn't have any impact in the grand final, I think it's fair to be critical.
Yeah, I think so. We're all loyal Swans fans. One thing I did have a look at before the game, actually, and I might have said this in the preview, was that if you look at those 3, a lot of media pundits are critical, at least on the 2 older guys, so McLean and Amadi, because they're 25 now.
Yeah, they're not young players anymore. They're inexperienced, but they're not young.
Yes, that's right. That's my thing, and I'm madly trying to find the page where I scribbled some notes down. But basically, the point is
serial killer notes that Noddy carries around with him.
It's bonkers. But basically, I think, Stevo, you hit the nail on the head. They are, at least McLean and Amadi, they're not young, but they are inexperienced. But the growth that Amadi has had this year, if you look at his previous years, is astronomical. It's whether or not, I mean, the 9 goals in Adelaide really blows it out, but he is the one that has really improved this year. yeah, so it's whether or not that they can continue to improve, and whether the structure is the right one to roll with. Anyway, yeah. So, Chriso, did we say Bob Medal? Should we just
let's just move on to Bob Medal, because I think it's going to be quick, because we spoke about it before we started the potty. We tried to put some names of good enough, because there really weren't many that stood up. And for me personally, I just immediately give the 3 points over the Rowie. I just felt he was the one guy who was just putting his head down all the time. He was genuinely, as far as I was concerned, for looking from the outside in, the one guy who was actively playing his role and his part in the game. And he had that wicked goal when we really needed it in that first quarter to drag it back. It was a great kick from like 50, 52 outs. And so he gets my 3 points. I don't know what else to say other than he was, to me, the only guy that really was standing up on the day.
Yeah, I think I'll take this next one. 2 points to Fox. He was, with Chad, our best in 2022. And in another poor performance, he was there again. And so, Fox it seems to me like Fox is a player that can rise above mental challenges. And actually plays out of his skin. And so, if he is not first pick every game next year, I'm gonna lose my shit. I don't care where he goes. Just get him on the field and get him around. Actually, get him around the pill, because he's a really good runner, and he knows how to use it. He's not going to always use it effectively, but if he's proven himself to be one of our two best players in 2 losing grand finals in the way that we did, Fox, to me, is like a critical piece of at least the next year. He's only got one. He's extended 1 year. They're giving him one at a time, which is a little bit of a. But for me, Foxy was he can hold his head up high. I think he did pretty well.
Agree to that. All right, so I think Stevo's got the best job, which is trying to find 1 point to give out. Go out, mate. Over to you.
Yeah, look, it says something about the day, doesn't it? When our 2 best, and I agree with you both, like they were the 2 best players for us by a fair way. When our 2 best players is a defensive midfielder and a role player. That was our 2 best efforts for the day. And the third one is probably another role player. Honestly, we talked about this, and none of us really wanted to give out a 1 vote to anybody, but in the end we settled on James Jordan, just for the defensive role that he played on Zorko in the first half, and then McCluggage in the second half. McCluggage really got into us in the first part of that game, and Jordan went and was accountable on him, and then Zorko in the first half didn't have much of it, and then went a bit mental in the second half and chopped us up. But talking about Zorko and McCluggage, actually, that's the one for the Swans. There was a few others that maybe could have got a vote, but probably not. I could have given some minus votes for sure to quite a few players. But I was wondering, because we had the Norm Smith medal, and I'm curious to you guys, because I was thinking about this watching the game, and you always think, if I'd voted in the Norm Smith, who would I have voted for? Like, who would have been your 3, 2, 1? I'll give you guys a second to think about it while I say mine, actually, because I haven't given you notice. Yeah,
Neil.
Yeah, who would have been your 3, 2, 1?
Probably, Neil. I would have probably said Archie and Ashcroft, or maybe Zorko, actually. So maybe Neil, Zorko, and then Archie, probably, or Ashcroft.
Yeah, so 3 to Neil.
Yeah. At the ground, are we doing 3, 2, 1?
Yeah, they vote 3, 2, 1 in the Norman Smith. Let's do that, because we may as well give out some votes to good footballers today that played well.
That's a good way of looking at it.
The Wi-Fi was useless at the ground, so I couldn't do the normal checking stats, and also I was kind of just sort of paralysed. But to me, it was kind of like, well, if Bobby Hill got it last year.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So I think, I know he kicked, I think it was 5 or whatever, but like Lohman was like unbelievable. Was really good. Like he was, like him and Archie, I think were just like they were difference makers. Like they were huge. And then of course you go to the stats after the game, and Ashcroft's ripped it up. Like when I was there at the ground and he won the medal, I was like, fucking what? Like what? And then I looked at the stats, and you watch the replay, and it was clean and sharp, and he's going to be one hell of a player.
He wasn't touched throughout the whole game. That's the other part of it. That's part of why I give it to the other. He was clean, but he also wasn't touched. Like he was running around by himself. So he got to do all that damage with no one on him, whereas the other ones kind of had to fight through some stuff. That's why I gave it off.
Yeah, and he was really good. I agree with you guys. I had Neil as my best one, then Ashcroft, and then I really liked Joe Danaher's game, actually. I thought he was awesome. And
retired
played
Joe
a really
Danaher.
important role for them. Yeah, and he'll be missed. Like, he's the sort of player that I think is good to have in the AFL because it's such a professional, sterilised competition a lot of the time. To have someone like him who's a bit of a different unit running around is good. And actually that makes me think of bloody their best off ground, because I reckon that the after party would have had a best on ground as well for the Lions. And I reckon Darcy Wilmot, based on his stage performance, would have been pretty high in the polls for the best in the bar. Sure. He would have been having a great night.
Best post-game performance.
Yeah, he was fun.
Or Big O.
Yeah.
Big O, what a legend.
Yeah, can we talk about him actually? What an absolute decent person, the way that he handled that whole thing, really. Like, that was so impressive.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And Darcy Falk came in and pretty much
played a role. Yeah, he did well.
Did a job.
Yeah.
He played really, really well.
Talked about their role players.
But just to see Big O smile and genuinely happy for his teammates, it was actually it was a really nice thing to see. And yeah, I mean, he had that interview with Katy Perry the day before. That was pretty funny.
I didn't see that.
Speaking about Katy Perry, and I was probably going to save this for the end, I've got one little conspiracy theory that's
go. Do it now, Noddy.
Yeah, spit it out. I want to hear it.
Do it. Yeah. So Katy Perry's main song, Firework, right, is the I'm going to make you roar. And obviously the Lions were just lapping that up because Lions roar, evidently. And I tried my best at the time. I was like saying soar, like swans fly and soar. But it had very little effect with just me singing it in the 100,000 strong crowd. But did somehow the AFL know that the Lions were going to be in the grand final, and that they were like, yeah, let's get Katy Perry because there's like a mild tiger lion reference there. So they were hedging their bets. I mean, as it turns out, Richmond were fucking useless. But yeah, that's my little thing. They've got the headline act supporting the grand final losers last year to give them that little Hollywood.
It's expensive. She cost $5 million. If it costs $5 million to win Brisbane a flag off a pre-game song, then money well spent, if you ask me.
Maybe
put it to a new Gabba. God, Brisbane,
$5 million is chump change. I think it was Gillan McGurkin or whatever his name was, the last bloke.
The boss of Tabcorp, the new Tab fellow. Yeah. What a convenient transition that was from a gambling sport to a gambling industry.
Seamless.
Well, if he was the one who helped bring Katy Perry over, Noddy, to add to your conspiracy, and the odds were going against the Swans for a while there. I don't know. I think there might be something to this, mate. There might be actually something to this one. I'm willing.
There could be.
I think it was 2022 was Inflategate with what's it?
That's right.
What's his name? Cameron.
Forgot about that.
We were just upset with the fact that he kept touching the ball in weird ways, and that was enough for Noddy and I.
We're just.
Yeah. And now it's...
The ball bounces bloody weirdly at the MCG. It bounces weirdly. How about that? It bounced in and then Zach Bailey gets it, pushes Rampy in the back, goes on. I think they actually perfectly behind there. But then there was that bounce that like should have gone out and then came back in over the head of McCartan. It's like it does funny things, the MCG. We've got to get there. We've got to play there more often. Yeah. And we've got to figure out whether or not the AFL booked Katy Perry to...
Katy Perry, you scumbag.
Kylie Minogue. She's going to be in Finland next year. I'll be there. Come along. Kylie Minogue's going to be playing in Finland in next summer. And I reckon she'd be less than $5 million.
Surely. I mean, I feel like you're on commission now because...
He's mentioned her a lot of times.
You can't wait to do it. There's a fair few mentions
like 4 times off the record and like 3 times on it. Yeah. What's going on?
I've been holding that for the whole hour we've been talking. I've been just waiting for a chance to sneak it in.
Josh Dunkley, should we just have taken him as a father-son? Because he is
we should take him and play him in the VFL for the rest of his life.
As
that's what we should do.
Can I ask, Josh Dunkley. I actually want to ask Noddy on the conspiracy front. Does Tina Arena have any part of this? Is she involved in this conspiracy?
I don't know. I think she's too cute. That was like a nice little cameo.
Rolled around of 1994 straight into the MCG. No worries.
Maybe that was like the AFL, like, okay, you can play one song from your new album, but only if Tina Arena comes out with you.
Who does Tina Arena know in the Gillan McGurkin camp that she gets?
Probably all of them.
I don't know. Power broker. One of my colleagues at work was like, I saw her when she was busking at Westfield Miranda. I was like, oh, well, that's a blast from the past. But here, look at her now. She's on the big stage.
She sang at the Tour de France when Cadel Evans won it. So the national anthem, yeah, she did.
Did she?
So she's
no way.
That's nice. Look, it was an amazing performance. Like, it was brilliant. It really was brilliant, right? And everything was still so hopeful, and there was.
Can we go back to that time? That was fun. I like that time. That was wonderful.
I just want to bottle that
optimism.
Bottle that 10-minute period. Also, the MCG ran out of beer before the game. They were running out of can. The MCG were running out of cans.
I can tell you why. I can tell you why. I was at the beer line, and I'm sitting there, and this Brisbane Lions guy turns around, looks at me, and goes, "Are you from New South Wales?" And I don't know how you can tell, but it must have been pretty obvious. He goes, "Bloody Westie from."
Was it the red and white? Or?
And he goes, "Are you from New South Wales?" And I'm just like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Is that Willie Mason?" Sure as hell, Big Willie is on the other side of the track. And in unison, without even having to have like coordinated this together, the three of us collectively go, "Hey, Big Willie!" together, and he just looks at us like, "Oh no, I've been caught out," and everyone turns around, and we just start staring at him. So I think Big Willie might have been drinking up a storm.
Willie Mason.
Yeah.
He's fallen from grace if he's in the cheap seats like the nosebleeds at the MCG and Grand Final Day. He should be in a
Hey, how do you know I was in the nosebleeds, mate? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me started on this P1, P2 nonsense.
I just don't understand any of the ticket allocation. The NRL Grand Final was on last weekend, and regular fans can buy tickets because, there's seats made available for regular fans. It's amazing that that's possible, but it is. Turns out it is.
Also didn't sell out, but whatever.
Oh, man.
Up the Tigers, go Wests.
Right. Look, it was a good game. I watched it. It's one of the only games of NRL I watch each year. And look, it did well. It was a close game. Shout out to my Penrith Panther mate, Matt Cleary. I think he's going to hear this. I'll send this episode to him. The implication, I know we sort of touched on it, the mental stuff. Do we get back from this? I just want to wrap it up again. What needs to happen here? Stevo?
Look, I just want to say this, and it's currently a question I could put to both of you. I really want to, actually. After 2022, I was the biggest defender of the boys, the young kids, saying that this is not going to affect them on an emotional level. And I was hell-bent on that, sticking to it, and I was doing everything I could to make sure that I felt that way, and it wasn't easily something you could address, is just to presume that they're going to fall over after 2022. But after 2024, my confidence in the boys not being affected by this mentally, scarred by this mentally, has waned significantly. So, Stevo, mate, over to you. What do you think? Where do you think I should stand on this one? Where do you stand?
I think I said a bit about this before, maybe not in as much depth, but it depends on the group and the players in the group as to which ones are maybe able to bounce back. And then good leadership within the club, not just from the playing group, but from everyone else in the club, like coaches and other staff and that. So it's probably not going to be the older ones. I mean, Parker's out the door. Rampy's can't have that long left, really. Mills...
He's got one more year.
Yeah, another year. Rampy, in terms of putting together a team or keeping together a team that can challenge over the next 2 to 3 to 4 years for a premiership. Rampy's probably not part of that. Mills can't stay on the park at the moment, which is a problem. It's really been a problem lately. So that's a lot of those leaders. So maybe we need to look at the next generation of leaders. I think Rowbottom is the obvious one. So you go to someone like him who really held his head up in a day that we got flogged on the biggest stage in Australian football and Australian sport, really. And you look at someone like him and you think, okay, who is around him that's roughly in his age bracket that can be the core ones that we use to drive this forward, and which guys maybe aren't going to be part of it? And that's maybe the playing side of it. But then the whole club, really, it's not just the players. There's 23 guys who play, but there's about 10 or a dozen coaches. We've got loads of coaches and other staff, and then there's the other parts of the club. There's the administration, there's the board, there's the executive. All of these parts of the club are part of what happens on the field. So I think if they're serious about addressing what is clearly now a pattern of losing big games, they need to go through the whole organisation.
Yep, I agree. What I want to see happen is us embrace a word that I think is scarring, and that's choker. And there's been a lot, a lot of. I've listened to a fair few interviews, and I'm trying to wrap my head around, the idea of choking, and obviously it's different when you're an individual sport as opposed to a team sport. There's a lot of complex parts to the club, as you've just called out, Stevo. But I think what needs to happen is, yes, acknowledge that it's a pattern, and say, yep, we choke, and then just embrace it. Because if you go, no, it's like it's the line that they used all year for why we weren't winning first quarters. Yeah, I don't know. We got to look at that. Yeah, we got to look at that. And then I'm sure they did, but nothing really seemed to happen except when we'd win, and then we'd win the game. But
on that still, just talking about choking and stuff. Like, the question that I would be wanting to be asking at every single part of the football club, off field, on field, board, CEO, whatever, all of them, is close enough good enough for the Sydney Swans Football Club? Is it? Because if it is, then fine, they succeeded. They've done a fantastic job over the last decade or so of being close enough is good enough. But if it's not, then what are the next steps?
I agree, and I think the evolution of AFL in New South Wales, it's still growing, obviously, but we're a very different place now than where we were in the 80s, right? And us growing up and watching the Swans, right? And in a foreign state, as it were, like the metrics of we need to make the finals to be relevant in Sydney. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I don't think that that's there now. Like, I think that if we're getting like almost 40,000 to the game every week, it is the best game in Sydney, like the hottest ticket in town, right? We've got the most members we've ever had. We're the most followed club, right? Of course, it sucks to not make the finals, but just making the finals, I don't think is the KPI now. And I go back to our club motto: "Aut vincere, aut mori," to conquer or die. And I think that we have to develop a ruthlessness now to get that resilience and that winning way to go that step further, to be able to show up on the big stage. And so I don't know. I think we need to embrace the term choker because it's a pattern. So they need to accept that it's a pattern and it's not good enough, and they need to do everything they can. The thing that sucks, and my last point, is that it feels like we're not going to improve the list in almost any way this trade period. It's happening at the moment, and I'll do a review of it once it's done.
We're going to lose a all-Australian midfielder. That's one out the door. So,
I mean, we haven't really spoken about Luke Parker. I mean, we've mentioned him, but like how has this happened? 293 games, should be a 300 gamer. I know it's been an unfortunate year, but like, has that played a role? We talked about Wixie. Has that played a role? Like, either way, it has to be like forensically dissected.
Yeah, the Mills injury too. Like, this started in the off season last year. There was the way that the club responded to that. I really didn't like. Like, there was this very like closed shop and almost patronising approach to supporters in the media around the Mills thing last year, and then the way that they responded to the little things this year, like when Toby Green made that funny bloody video about Isaac Heaney's suspension, whatever, and the very precious protective response to that. I thought, come on, guys, you're on top of the ladder. You're doing all right. Let Toby have a joke.
It's funny, like all these things that have happened, and we still produced an amazing season. Like, we also, I don't think we've acknowledged that. It's been an amazing season in our 150th year milestone and minor premiers, and we came very close. But it's just it's that last performance that leaves that sour taste in the mouth. And that's why we're hopeful that we can improve the lists in some way, just even a role player, right? Let's get a 100-plus gamer, a delisted free agent, Brandon Parfitt, Matthew Kennedy. He's not delisted, but there's players out there that I think we can improve depth lines. If we're extending Aaron Francis,
I'll give you a list of guys from Brisbane who I would have liked to have had on grand final day. I mean, some of these maybe aren't really role players, but I'll just spit off a couple of them. Bloody
is one of them Fletcher. Devin Robinson and his rig?
Yeah, his rig would be also nice. And what's that other Brisbane player, ex-Brisbane player? Reece Matheson. Have you seen his rig that he's carrying around in state footy these days? Unbelievable. But
I think there's something
but not those guys. Like, guys who played in the grand final and absolutely thrashed us. Jared Berry, bloody Jasper Fletcher, Zach Bailey, Starcevic, bloody Noah Answorth, Leicester, Wilmot. these sort of players. Charlie Cameron played a role in that game. He didn't try to play the star forward. He played a really strong role, and
That's coaching.
That's coaching because Cunningham had always had his number, and then they said don't do what you normally do, play a role, and then Cunners couldn't stay on him, and then he contributed.
I was at the pub afterwards after the game by myself. Me with my medicinal vape and some brown ale and some Jamesons. And I was sitting at the Union Hotel. It's legal. Sitting at the Union Hotel just by myself, just trying to structure my brain, and it was not there.
Oh, mate, that's the saddest thing I've heard today in the whole talk.
It was brutal. Danny, and God bless my beautiful fiancée, because she just went, you just go do what it do. And I'm like, cool, I'll see you in a couple of hours.
Oh, mate.
Took me, my sorry self, out to the closest pub at Union Hotel on Union Street, and just sat there and just trying to think about put together, had some sympathy for myself, put this together. And then I got really worried. I'm like, and to what Noddy's saying there is like, where is our list now? Like legitimate, we've put this together. We've scored heaps of runs. Listen to me, I'm already in cricket season. We've scored heaps from the centre, but our forward line needs work. Our back line is really old, and the midfield is going to get a chunk taken out of it now. And I'm really, really worried. Really worried.
Yeah, the core list. I mean, it's a team that's won 19 games and lost 7, but it's just I go back to it's the way in which we lost that last game, the most important game. But we need something to even just something to go, oh yeah, okay, cool. That'll complement an already amazing list that just didn't really follow a game plan or turn up mentally on the day when they needed to. So look, I don't know. It's one of those things where we'll just be questioning it all off season, really. But yeah, I just think
I think that. The trade. I think
I've lost what I'm trying to say.
I think what I'm getting out of you, Noddy, is that the new season starts now, and we're trying to mentally get to that state. But we're so hurt. I'm personally so hurt about what happened a couple of weeks ago that I can't get my brain out to start thinking about the trade targets and stuff. And there's some work to be done, and we're saying we can get it done. We need to go out there. We need to find those pieces. There are pieces out there we can plug into this, but it's going to need a full effort, and starting with an off season and some good trade targets to fill in some holes that we're going to actively lose by a couple of decent players who are going to take off.
It's always a balance. Yeah, I agree, mate. It's a balance between keeping enough leaders in the team, but not having too many that it blocks the way for those exciting youngsters. And we've got a lot of them. But if we then bring in another couple of delisted free agents that have 100+ games for that sort of depth line and sort of resilience, I just want to bring in tacklers. I just want to bring in people that are elite tacklers, and there are a few out there. Will Setterford, I know he's not really, he doesn't really light the world on fire, but he's an elite tackler.
I don't know.
down the Noddy trade radio.
We'll give you a whole dedicated hour later on in the month. You can go through.
It was about to get real messy there, guys.
My wish list. I want bloody Harley Reid and who are the other ones? You asked me my 3 players that I want. Yeah, the Bont and JUH. Yeah, they're my 3. So if we can get even 2 of them, I reckon.
In that exercise, I was Sam de Koning, Tom de Koning, and Peter Wright, which many people didn't like, but I think he's, I
like Wright. I think he could be. The exercise, by the way, we didn't tell anyone that's listening that. Yeah, the exercise was if you could bring in any 3 players to the Swans tomorrow, money doesn't matter, picks doesn't matter. Get them.
That was the exercise.
That's what we did.
I think mine was Peter a little bit more pragmatic, but yours was definitely the winner. I think, like you. Yeah.
No, I went to town. I was like, no, I want the 3 best players in their positions in the country.
Anyway, well, I think that's kind of, we're getting towards the end here, guys. So,
Yeah. I've
got a bit of a shopping list of you go, Chris, because I've got some last things, quite a few actually.
Yeah, well, I'll touch on mine really quickly. A friend of the potty, Egg Footy, he does a pretty funny YouTube and everything. Big Brisbane Lions fan, very funny guy. In person, lovely dude, very sweet, gracious, and so shout out to him. And I think just thank you for just being a freaking gracious, good guy all the way through. A bit of a troll, of course, once he gets on the social media, because God bless him, he needs it, that's his thing. But he's an absolute, yeah, exactly. He's a cracking guy. So well done, Big Footy.
This sort of tacks on to that too. Like this was a very disappointing grand final for Swans people, for all of us, for anyone that loves the red and white. It was awful. It was miserable, but it wasn't like a nasty, malicious grand final. And I think that the Brisbane Lions people were a big part of that. And I'd like to thank, first of all, my mate Grant, who's been on our women's podcast talking about the Lions before. So those of you who heard him there. I watched the game at his place. Like, he's the coach of our footy team here in Finland. I watched the game at his place with a bunch of guys from our team. Not for one moment was he freaking unfriendly or gloating or nasty. It was very, very gracious in victory. And then we hung out for the rest of the day and, had beers and talked about the footy season and whatnot. And he was very decent. So thanks, Grant, for making it a good day. And also Craig, a good mate of mine from footy for the Geelong one 2 years ago. He was the same. So thanks to both of them for 2 years of grand final. Two of my best footy mates in Finland have beaten us in 2 consecutive thrashings in grand final. So maybe the key is that the next time we get to is not against a team that's the team of a good mate of mine. Could be the way to go. I've got a couple more. Sorry, fellas, if you'll bear with me. On Fitzroy and Brisbane, but especially Fitzroy, I want to say to my grandfather, my dad's dad, he grew up in a lot of part of his younger life in the Fitzroy area. My papa, he was a huge Fitzroy fan his whole life. Even after they moved to Brisbane, he remained a Fitzroy fan and actually started following the Swans a bit in his later years because of the family with us. So Papa, it was great to see his Lions get up. He was funny. He used to live in Fitzroy as a kid. He used to say that he hated Collingwood so much because they were the neighbouring suburb. He hated Collingwood so much he wouldn't read the newspapers or watch black and white television when television came in the 60s or whenever it was. So that was for Papa. And another family thing is I just want to thank all from the bevy who were such a big help getting my parents down to the prelim final. My mum and dad live up on the Central Coast, so it's quite an effort, especially to get to a night game at the SCG. And so to Noddy for sorting out all the tickets, and for Chris and his partner Danny for sitting with them, and Sam. My mum said, I was talking the other day, and she said, "Oh, Sam's a lovely young man, isn't he?" I'm like, I've actually never met Sam. I only know him through the podcast. We've never met in person. And Mum's like, "He's a lovely young fellow." We had a good chat. She sat next to Sam apparently for part of the game. And I'm like, "Wow, you haven't seen the videos he sends us from the bloody nightclubs on the Swans away trips." There's two sides to Sam. Yeah. So thanks so much to all of the bevy for helping them out get to that game. And they got to see my nephew play at halftime too, which was fantastic.
Your mum was so sweet. I kept mentioning you as Stevo, and she kept correcting me as Steve. And she got quite upset after halfway through it. So
that's classic.
Very fun. Yeah.
And then you buggered off to the bar or somewhere for the second half. I heard.
Well, that was when there was still positivity in the world. The prelim win.
Yeah, it was a
good season there.
We could have just stopped. The
that's good, mate. Good shout out. No. Not at all,
so
mate.
Thanks
Sammy
for indulging me with that list.
There's not many fans bigger than Sam, honestly. I think he went to every game this year, didn't he? Home and away?
No.
Yeah.
He did 100% of the games home and away everywhere.
Yeah, he was in it. Yeah. He was there. And he's a lovely bloke, and he's an absolute loose unit, and we love him for it. So are you listening to all right. Well, I just got one more shout out before we go. I've obviously touched on it. We're going to aim to do at least 2 more episodes for the men's for the year. We're going to do a season review probably around the end of this month, October. Obviously, we'll look into everything that went well and some of the awards and stuff like that. And then we'll do another one towards the end of November, which will be the trade and draft wrap, where we summarize everything that happened. Obviously, we'll do a few updates as they're happening because it's a live thing that we won't know until the fullness of time. So I'm just practicing that. I'm not quite
you too.
But I'll keep practicing.
I don't quite understand it. Yeah.
Say it till you believe you understand what it means, I think.
If you say it with enough confidence.
You too can be CEO of the Swans. So, yeah, that's it for the men's there. Chriso, did you want to shout out for women's?
Yeah, absolutely. Stevo and I, there's still football going on. There's still Swans football going on. The girls are having a crack at it. over there in the women's AFLW season. Stevo and I, along with Jen, our other co-host, do it every single week. We did our episode last night, and the girls are having a genuine crack at it, losing by small margins, but learning as we go. So yeah, if you want to get stuck into more footy is continuing. The red and the white are still out there battling hard. Listen to us on or wherever you would normally listen to this. There's also the AFLW, and get on to a game and support your girls.
Up the girls.
It's good fun.
All right, go the girls.
Up the girls.
Up the Swannies. All right, well, that brings us to the end of this episode. So thank you for listening through to the end. If you made it this far, it must mean we did something good. So we'd absolutely love it if you could give us a like and a follow on all of your favourite socials.
Otherwise, make sure to keep your eye out for all the content that we release throughout the time. If you ever want to have a chat, make sure to ping us. We look forward to seeing you till next time. But until then,
up the bloods.
Up the bloods.
The bloods.
On you, Swatty.
And on you,
Swatty. 2025.
No, not jokers. No, embrace the choke. Embrace the choke. Sounds like